PharmaPhobic is powered by Achieve the Lifestyle, a company dedicated to helping you empower your health, redefine your lifestyle, and all for the health of it. You're listening to PharmaPhobic, where we challenge the state of health in America. I'm Janie, a physician assistant, and I've seen how healthcare keeps people dependent instead of truly healthy.
And I'm Dan, a veteran turned fitness pro here to uncover the truth and explore simple and sustainable health solutions. From big pharma to big food, we're exposing the conflicts of interest keeping us sick and finding better ways to take back our health.
No fluff, no gimmicks, just real talk, real solutions, and a little bit of fun along the way.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of PharmaPhobic, where we're going to help you achieve a stronger, healthier, and more capable version of yourself, and hopefully expose you to some of the stuff that's actually preventing you from getting there along the way. And maybe you'll laugh a little bit, I'm hoping. Before we get started today, I got to say, we almost didn't make it. Guys,
my goodness.
This episode almost didn't happen, okay? Because somebody, I'm not going to say any names, forgot to set an alarm. And I had a gut feeling. I had a gut feeling last night before I went to bed. You know, she's long gone. I hear the snoring from the room, and I'm like, I should probably set my alarm. But it's Saturday, and I don't want to hear my alarm because I usually hear it at like 3 o'clock in the morning every day. So I'm just like, I don't want to do it. And boom, lo and behold, she forgot to set the alarm.
Right. But who woke up 15 minutes after the alarm would have gone off to wake you up? And who's so rigid in their morning routine that they can't speed it up by 15 minutes?
We're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
All right. That's a separate topic.
So yes, I set the alarm, but I didn't save it. It's the key part. You have to save it for it to go off in the morning.
Listen, it's all good. We made it. Okay, we're here to bring information to you and share some time with you and talk about health. I got to say, though, as I feel like this is just me here, going off a feeling, like the more you focus on health and what you eat and you start maximizing that, I feel like the gut feelings are a little bit stronger. So I'm trying to get better at listening to that. Like I just had this nagging thing like, I should set mine too. You know what I mean? So, but I dismissed it and boom, there it went. What do you think?
Yeah, no, the gut feeling thing definitely is true. But I think we both struggle with this. We both struggle to actually listen to it and, follow through with feeling it.
I think it's a new feeling. Like, and you hear there's a lot of crazy stories out there about gut feelings where people just, I'm not going to walk down that road because something could happen, and then they go somewhere else and then something does happen there. You hear a lot of, like, from downrange, you hear a lot of stories of people having, like, hey, stop the truck, crazy, crazy stuff about gut feelings. But I definitely, other than heightened situations like that, my opinion is like, the more optimal you're functioning, the more this thing starts to come back. If you will.
I would also just like to note that you compared being downrange to waking up 15 minutes late.
I'm just talking about a crazy situation. It was very stressful.
No, it was
very stressful. Be like, oh my God, now I can't have my morning routine.
Because I'm the one who walks the dog in the morning, does all these things, and that is a great segue to what we want to talk about today with just women's health, because we can see how women's health can be a little bit harder to optimize because we're usually taking on more things, especially in the morning, while somebody else likes to take their time and get ready.
Oh. Zinger. Okay, you got me. It's true. Gentlemen, I think we can all acknowledge that it could go either way. Women tend to make your life easier in a lot of regards. They do take on a lot of stuff, and unbeknownst to us, some of the times where you're like, oh, my coffee's magically in the French press already. I don't know who did that. But yeah, we definitely want to talk about women's health. Why are we talking about women's health first?
I just feel that women are notoriously targeted, for lack of better words, with cultural, societal pressures to be a certain way, act a certain way, look a certain way, that it becomes very misleading on what is actually healthy for women. And it's not always the same thing that's healthy for a man.
Yes. So, and although we always talk about the principles of health, or the pillars that we like to talk about, the movement, the nutrition, the recovery, recharge, stress management, the exposure to the outdoors, and the social connections, and those principles apply to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter, when you start getting down to the individual, that how you apply these principles becomes, and in what order you apply them, it becomes a little bit different. And that's where the men and the women thing comes in.
Right.
I also think, like, to me, the women's health thing, I see it as the front line of the health war, if you will. Like, over there is, big pharma and big food and all these companies trying to take advantage and create a construct where they profit off the people's illness. And on this side, are the people that are fighting for their health and trying to get healthier and trying to live better lives, better, longer lives. And I think the women's health is literally the front line of the matter.
Agreed, because women during pregnancy, their health influences the development of the child and can be sort of set the child up for how they're going to be health-wise later in their life. Okay, so there's that.
That's big facts.
There's also women traditionally, now it might not be as common because some men stay at home, some women work. There's more shared responsibilities in the home, but I would say still commonly women are the main people at home cooking and things like that. So, we won't go into it, but the whole ban, like speaking poorly about cholesterol is bad. They targeted women to use Crisco, convenient, easy, better for you, saves you time.
TV dinners, all
Yes,
that
TV
trash.
dinners. So that way now women weren't doing things to nourish their kids. They were doing more convenient things, not to their fault. And then, we'll talk about that. We've talked about it before. We'll talk about it in the future, how that cascades into poor health.
You know what?
For
I
everyone.
saw something recently. Now that brings me about how the fast food thing, like the commercials, the KFC buckets, and all this other garbage, if you will, was those commercials were targeting women as a, hey, feed your family quicker type of thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that
Right.
until you said that. That makes sense, and that's what started making people cook less and less at home.
Right.
And then here we are with all the garbage food.
Yeah. And, yes, men are targeted as well. And our next episode is going to talk about men's health. But right now we are focusing on women. We're not saying that men are just, they're fine.
No, man, you're going to get yours. Your day's coming too, man. I got something to say too. But really, I want to start with women because it like Janie said, I feel like what women do when we talk about the household, what women do tends to have a little bit more influence on the rest of the family versus what the men do. And even though I feel like men should be in a position, where if you're doing something really good for yourself, you should extrapolate that to the rest of your family. But I feel like women's in the average family, what the mom is doing is what actually permeates. Is it because they spend more time with the kids? Whatever the reasons may be, is you just tend to see it more that whatever the mom's doing is what the rest of the family is emulating. So if mom's on a diet, we'll talk about this here in a second, the kids are on a diet too type of thing. Or maybe the husband's on a diet too type of thing versus...
Or they aren't, but, mom will eat a certain way, kids will eat another way. But the kids, it's not that the kids don't see. They don't see how mom's eating or dad. And then one thing I stress to patients or clients that I work with is that kids are watching. And so they will then say, oh, well, mom ate or dad ate this way when they were older, so that's how I need to eat when I'm older. And so it's very important that you set the tone of diet, exercise, stress management for yourself and your benefits, but also to give the kids a kind of a blueprint of what to do when they're older.
Yeah. And because of the influence the mom has, that's why I'm like, okay, let's talk about the women, because through the women, we're hoping that, we're shaping the next generation in a better way. Okay. And like I was saying, like the dad, if dad goes to the gym after work or that sort of thing, sometimes it's looked at as like, oh, that's dad's thing. So it doesn't matter.
And women are more likely to do their workouts in home because even if, both parents are working or whatever, the women are typically the ones who pick the kid up if they're sick at school, taking the kid to school, picking them up from school, taking them to doctors' dental appointments. So they're more like in touch with the kid throughout the day than the kid is. And so then they tend to have less time to be able to go to a gym after work. So if they are doing physical activity, it's in the presence of the children.
Yep. And then looking down the line too, like advertising and all this marketing, like a lot more stuff is marketed to women.
Right.
And then there's a lot of health initiatives and things like that are targeting women. Now, me personally, when I talk about training and nutrition and that sort of thing, I tend to have a female avatar in mind because I feel like the historical misconceptions and the social misconceptions have targeted women more than men. And I also have a certain expectation of men. So I feel like the women need more attention, more help to get them going into the health thing, into the actual long-term health thing than the men do because I'm expecting something of them. So I have a harder time talking to men. Does that make sense?
I find that interesting.
I may listen, if you're a dude, like I'm expecting you to want to be strong in some way, shape, or form, to like be physically capable in some way, shape, or form. Am I biased? Is that wrong? Because like I have a different background and things like that. Whatever. I'm expecting more of you, bro. So let's bring them up to speed. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at with that.
Okay.
I want to talk about, we're talking about marketing and this sort of thing that's heavily targeted towards women. Healthy at any size movement.
Oof. Wow.
It is heavy, heavy, heavy geared towards the women.
Right.
Heavy, like the amount of focus that they have on women is insane to me.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show. Now, if you don't know what the healthy at any size thing is, it's basically this movement, grassroots, I call it a psyop, where we're telling people that you could be literally healthy at any size. So you could be 400 pounds and you could be healthy. Or you could be really rail thin, frail, and you could be healthy. And I feel like it disempowers people. Because you're literally, we don't want to create complexes if you're struggling with your weight or that sort of thing. We're not trying to say like, but we want you to acknowledge that is not optimal long term and to start taking steps towards getting better at it,
Right.
and working yourself towards and I'm not saying that you got to have a six pack or anything like that, because as we've discussed in previous episodes, that could be unhealthy too.
Yeah.
So we're not placing the value on physical appearance, we're placing the value on capability, blood work, that sort of thing, and with a caveat on the blood work, because it's a snapshot in time and you could be 400 pounds and take a blood work at one point and you're fine.
Well, and the conventional screening tests don't get at as deep as they need to get.
No, and
right? Because they're looking at stuff that's going to tell you that you're trending unhealthy maybe a year before you develop a disease, when there are tests out there that can give us 10 plus years of a heads up.
Yeah, and they also they change the averages and what they're calling healthy and unhealthy year to year.
Because so many people are getting out. So triglycerides, for an example, it used to be 150 or below. Now some are marking it normal until 200 because medication's not indicated till it's higher. And so many people are getting to that borderline 150, 170 that it's like, okay, well then let's just bump up the end range.
A1C is another one. You could be walking around with a 5.9 and they're like, you're good.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you went from 5.5 to 5.7 to 5.9 and now, oh no, you're good. And then
that's the 3-month average blood sugar.
And then when you hit diabetic, it's like, oh, you're not good, but here's your medication.
Right.
But they won't tell you before that. So there's a lot there to unpack. But this movement or whatever we're going to call it, the PSYOP, it's really, I feel like it just disempowers people because you're telling them, you're good, just stay the same. Don't work on it. And I wouldn't be surprised if it has big pharma dollars behind it. Because, I mean, it's heavy. It's a very heavy, well-funded marketing tactic. You know what I mean? And it is just telling people to don't work on this. Just carry on doing what you're doing. Next thing you know, you're ill.
There's something I've noticed, and this is kind of going off a little bit, but what I've noticed is along like the healthy at any size movement, the increase in obesity and things like that. And, we're, again, like Dan said, we're not saying trying to give people an issue with their weight if, they are already working on it, they're struggling with it. But when you do carry around more weight, you do tend to have more body odor because, if there's skin on skin contact with excess skin or fat, there's creases and there's more body odor. Has anyone else seen in Target? It used to be deodorant section, but now it's like deodorant section and then like a body deodorant. So for your whole body, that's expanded recently. And body odor has to do with the quality of the food you're eating and also how much aeration you're getting to your body. So if you have excessive amounts of tissue, fat, skin, whatever, and it's skin on skin and yeast builds up and, musty smells and things like that, now you need this body deodorant to use, which then is an endocrine disruptor, which fucks up your hormones, which then causes more of an issue. So, sorry, that's just something that I've noticed that I think is...
That's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
And I think the cologne, perfume, mist game has gotten, it's blown up.
Yeah,
like we're out of control now,
it's
fam.
2025. We have showers, running water. We don't, we're not like wearing like in the, I don't know, medieval Renaissance times, these big things being covered up. It's, Florida and you're wearing a turtleneck dress with a bunch of layers, then you haven't bathed in a week. We don't need all of this perfumes on us.
Oh, but it's gotten heavy. Like I'm like at the gym and I can smell somebody coming in from the other side type of thing where I'm like, what are we wearing? What is this? This smells like, wow, it just wafts you in the face like that. So
and when somebody like walks in with the cologne or perfume that takes you back to college and you're like, oh, bad decisions.
No, man, it's gotten heavy. It's gotten it's gotten heavier. And listen, I say this as a Hispanic male. Like, when I was growing up in high school and college, you took pride in your cologne collection. You're just misting yourself all over. And now I'm like, yo, we gotta ease up on this. Yeah. The smells are getting a little too aggressive,
Yeah.
But yeah, good connection there.
But no, women are targeted more, whether it be with supplements or, exercise types. Like you should do cardio only, pink dumbbells. And then one thing I love with going back to supplements is creatine. Like there's huge benefits for women to consume creatine, whether it's for muscle health, cognitive, brain health, all these things. But it's just creatine monohydrate. That's it. That's all we need. But then they'll, creatine for women or pink creatine. And then the price goes up and then, you think it's better for you. And just like, no, you just need the regular creatine.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So, and that kind of takes us into this realm of misconceptions, whereas what we wanted to kind of tackle today a little bit, like things that you and I see a lot of, in practice. And when I'm, I train a lot of women, and the ages range, but I see, the questions that I get have a commonality, and then it goes into what you see in the medical field. So we want to debunk and kind of combat some stuff today a little bit, and put a little seed in your right here. Plant a little seed. Be like, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. First one I got here is the most famous one that I feel there's a movement against it now, and I'll talk about this here in a second. But it's I don't want to get bulky.
Do you know that my mother said that to me? She's like, I just want to tone up. I don't want to get bulky.
Yeah, I heard her.
I was like, do you know I'm your daughter?
Whenever I hear that, I'm like, and I have to walk away. I was like, okay, we'll talk about this later.
Do you know I'm your daughter who lifts weights as her primary mode of activity? But no, and I didn't. That was all internal because I try to let her have her say and just guide her on, well, toning up is actually putting on more muscle and losing fat. So you do need to lift weights to do that. And so, back to lifting weights makes you bulky. Dan, why is that not true?
Well, first of all, we got to talk about the amount of calories that you have to consume to actually bulk up. Like the world is filled with men who want to bulk up. I'm one of them. Okay. I want to get big, thick boy status and deadlift 600 pounds like it's nothing. That's my whole, when I'm lifting, that's my whole goal. I'm not bulky yet, guys. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've been trying this. So we got to talk about the amount of calories that you have to consume. We got to talk about a training style. We got to talk about, women look at some of the bodybuilding females, which I feel bodybuilding has changed a lot for women, a lot. Like the women that are bodybuilding now are completely different than what we were looking at in magazines in the 90s. No offense to those ladies, but there's a lot of very, attractive women and that have jumped into the field, and they're all over Instagram, and bodybuilding's looking great,
And
Is
I
it
think
healthy? No.
I also think it's important to say that there's become more of a natural, natural bodybuilding has become more
the
popular.
natty.
Back in the 90s, they were.
Oh, they were hopped up on
Yep.
Mountain Dew. They had more juice than Jamba.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chael Sonnen, for that line. Anyway, yes, that's the other one. When you look at these women that are competing at, granted, bodybuilding has categories, but the ones that you're like, oh my God, they're on performance enhancement drugs. So there's multiple factors there that tells me like, hey, Susie from whatever suburb with the 3 kids, you're not going to get bulky because you're not going to do all the stuff required to get quote unquote bulky. But when you talk about toning, you are essentially talking about gaining muscle and losing fat.
Right. And so the other thing is I think women have been targeted with, I grew up in the 90s, that heroin chic, like your thighs couldn't touch. Like you had to look like gaunt and like you were dying to be attractive. And so that's just one, that's not good for our health. And 2, not every body type fits that. And so I think some women do have naturally skinnier legs, but some women have thicker thighs, which actually thick muscular legs is related to longevity. So let's go, But women have been so targeted on their appearance and then also fed ways to achieve that appearance, which aren't necessarily true.
Parentheses, you mentioned the magazine covers of the 90s, like Vogue and Cosmo and all these publications that had these uber skinny women in the front. And that was what they were pushing on the girls, and Lord knows how many eating disorders these magazines created. Now, go look at the cover of a Cosmo and a Vogue and tell me what you see. Obese women. That's how you know this is all a psyop. What changed, guys? What happened to the normal women? What happened to the average woman that's working on her health, doing the fitness thing? She doesn't have to look like a cover model. What happened to that girl? Yeah. You went from this end, you went all the way up to the other side to where it's like both ends are unhealthy.
Yeah.
And that's wild to me that that's how you know there's a programming thing there. There's a psyop thing there. Kind of pisses me off, but whatever.
Yeah. And women were heavily targeted with, and I tried to look this up, but I couldn't find any literature on it, but I know I heard it, I think on a podcast somewhere, where there's something out there about how women specifically were targeted by cardio equipment. And a lot of these gyms, because if we look back at like, what did gyms used to be? They used to be like Arnold, like powerlifting gyms, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden these gyms started where the majority of the spaces, treadmills, ellipticals, bicycles, and I'm not saying that those are bad, right? But there's that almost like takes over the weightlifting equipment, and it's targeted for women to get women in there just to be on these machines, but don't touch the weights because that's only where men are. And so do you know anything about that? Because I couldn't find.
No, I don't. I can't speak to it intelligently, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Now, granted, and having been in gyms for a long time, that's usually what you see. Cardio equipment, you pull up, and it's a bunch of women.
Yeah.
And then you go to the weights, and it's a bunch of dudes. And it's like, ladies, y'all need some of this over here in the weights. And men, y'all need some of that over there in the cardio. Like, get on that step mill or something. Yeah. Because you're like looking all buff, but then you go up the stairs and you're holding your knees. Like, that's crazy. But I think with this whole don't get bulky thing, Janie and I, we love the focus on capability. It's stronger, healthier, more capable. That's what we look for. Valuing what your body can do before you start valuing how your body looks. And then eventually form follows function.
Can we also, I'm sorry, I forgot to bring this up. Can we talk about women afraid to lift weights? Yet if you have children and your kid weighs 30 pounds, you have no problem picking him up.
And that's what I was going at.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good point. That's where I was going. It's the capability part of it. Like, I like to revert everything back to, like, if we were out in nature. So let's say, 200 years ago, we're frontiersmen and we're out there freaking populating, I don't know, whatever state in the West, in the Western frontier.
Kansas.
Kansas. There we go. Let's go with Kansas. And we're out there and there's bears and there's all sorts, and we got to hunt our own food. But there's stuff that can kill you in Kansas. We got to hunt our own food, and we got enemies and all this other stuff. And the men, you're in your little village, your little commune, and the men got to go, hey, we got to go hunt. We got to go bring a bison back. And you could extrapolate this to Native American tribes. You can, Vikings. This is really where it hit me, where it kind of dawned on me. We were watching Vikings. And I was like, wait, all the men are going to jump on boats and they're going to be gone for months. And who's staying behind? The women and the children. So if things need to get moved around in the village, heavy things, the fields still need tending. The kids got to get chased down and taken care of. If something or someone attacks the village, who's going to pick up? I'm like, the women are going to do this.
Or we can even look at it to more recent events, World War II, or was it World War II? Yeah.
Where the women had to go and work in the manufacturing jobs. Listen, an image that women love. Like 99% of women love this image. Betty the Riveter. What's she doing?
Rosie the Riveter.
Is it Rosie the Riveter? Her.
Yeah.
Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Rosie
the lady. There you go. The lady with the bandana. What's she doing in the freaking graphic? What's she doing?
Flexing her bicep.
She's flexing her freaking bicep. Yo, that's more like, if you're gonna use that image, like, put your eyes on it and look at it and be like, oh, she's flexing her bicep.
Yeah.
Like it's a sign of capability, of strength, showing off muscle. You see what I mean? Like, I just, this idea that women are meant to be dainty, and, men have played a part in this too, because there are men out there that are specifically looking for these dainty, defenseless, women that lack capability, and they find that attractive. That's not healthy either, guys. And we'll talk about that, because I'm on to you.
Yeah,
Listen,
you men need to.
I'm on you.
You men need to get over your insecurities and try and stop making women be smaller so you feel better.
Yeah, and that's something we could talk about when we talk about men's health, because you know where that comes from? Because homie's weak as hell.
Yep.
He's weak. He's not taking care of himself. And so he wants his woman to be weaker than him. But now it's something that, when you think about it, it's like in nature, I mean, chasing kids, taking care of the household, whatever it is that you're doing, you got to be strong for that. I mean,
cooking with cast iron skillets?
Yeah.
Those aren't light.
That's heavy. Yeah. I mean, and I can only, if you got more than one child, you picking them up, you're doing this stuff, you got to be able to sprint when your toddler runs off in the wrong direction. Like, this requires some form of capability.
Right.
So there's value in being stronger and being more capable. Now, adding to that, what's a common ailment that tends to afflict a majority of a majority female population? Not the majority of the population, but when you look at this ailment, it's mostly women that are dealing with it.
Osteopenia, osteoporosis.
Boom, osteoporosis, the dreaded osteoporosis. It is 99% of women that are osteoporosis type people, not 99% of women.
I'm very sad.
People
throwing out a stat that's
that
not
end
accurate.
up getting diagnosed with osteoporosis, the overwhelming majority are going to be female.
It does affect women more often than men. So risk factors for osteoporosis are going to be female gender, Caucasian, low body weight, history of smoking, history of alcohol use, and history of corticosteroid use. So men can have osteopenia, osteoporosis. You're going to see that more in those who have been treated for like prostate cancer, or they've had things happen like hyperthyroidism, other things like that affect their bone health. Whereas women, it can be more as an effective lifestyle.
Yep. And then you see a lot of it is like nutritional, like, hey, you chronically underate for ages and ages and ages. Lack of resistance training, so lack of strength. And you'll see it in a lot of women that are considered active. But when you dive into the activity, It's mostly cardio and yoga
Yeah.
type stuff. They never were exposed to any resistance training, which is what helps you build denser bones.
Mhm.
Chronically underfed, could like caloric intake has been low for ages and ages and ages. And that's something like we as a society kind of underserved women in and got them to eat less and less and less, going back to
Yeah.
those heroin chic looks,
Yeah.
you know.
Whereas, women, a lot of women think that they need to eat less than a man, which that really just depends on the man you're comparing yourself to, what's his size more often and what's his activity level and things like that. Because there's many times where we eat the same amount, if like days, not always, but, and so women don't need to, I see this so much, especially with my parents, where like they'll get 2 meals, my mom will eat half and give the rest to my dad. And I'm just like, just eat your food, mom.
Mhm.
Like, but yes, women have been targeted to eat less. They've also been back to the convenience thing. They've been targeted with supplements like protein bars, Premier protein shakes,
Health snacks.
health snacks, and things like that because they're too busy taking care of everyone else to then take care of themselves. Whereas if they took care of themselves the same way they took care of others, they'd be a lot better off.
Or, the old airplane analogy that everybody likes to use, where you put
Oh,
your mask on before you put
yeah,
somebody else's mask on. You help yourself first so that you can help others more effectively.
right.
So, it's
And so with food, one thing I think women need to understand is that we're really big on making sure people get enough protein. Okay. So minimum of like 100 grams of protein a day is ideal for just everyone to kind of start with, especially women, because women are notoriously under eating that. And most women think protein muscle, right? Yes, but also protein is important for our hormone health, okay, our immune system,
that's a
our
big one.
cognitive health, blood sugar control, thyroid health. So a lot of women are more afflicted with thyroid issues, women more afflicted with hormonal issues, or we go through more hormonal changes, perimenopause, menopause. And if you're under eating protein, which is the initial building block for these things, what do you think is going to happen? And so if we bump up our protein, it can lead to better management of our body's normal functions, in addition to having a good amount of lean muscle mass, which then can protect you against osteopenia, osteoporosis, but can also protect you against diabetes because glucose is stored in the body in 2 places: liver, muscle. The more muscle you have, the more glucose is going into it and not hanging out in your bloodstream wreaking havoc.
Mm.
And so I think women need to, and some men need to abandon the thought that protein is only a facilitator of muscle. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, and I tend to you see a lot of disordered eating with amongst females, and it's this proclivity for snacking versus actually sitting down and eating a full
Crazy.
meal. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like all the snacks, but you haven't had lunch, breakfast, or dinner, but
Right.
you're on them snacks, son,
So
and they
this,
usually tend to lack protein. The other one is um they tend to be on all the supplements. Like
mhm.
women are gonna lean more towards taking all the vitamins, all the stuff, but you ain't eating. Like, sis, don't hey, are you on this? Yep, I'm on that, I'm on this, I'm on this. Get this crazy supplement regimen, but they haven't paid attention to the eating.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it's called supplements. I don't want you to rely solely on supplements for your nutritional strategies. The smoothie for breakfast type of thing. And listen, it's better than not eating.
Mhm.
But we got to regulate your eating and then we sprinkle in the supplements. Not, let me get my supplement regimen down
Yep.
and then I'll sprinkle in food.
And women are targeted for that because since they aren't eating optimally, they're more likely to be more tired, have sleep issues, and things like that, which, oh, look, this supplement can help with feeling fatigued. This supplement can
Mhm.
help with sleep. And so it's this cycle that we get into.
And this common, something you hear a lot of women, oh, my B vitamins are low and my iron is low.
So heads up, women, we bleed every month. Okay. And when we do that, we lose iron. So you do need to intake iron through your diet because we are more likely to have lower iron because we're losing it. Guess where you can get good sources of iron?
You got to eat that meat. And here's the thing. That was, I took that one too far. Yeah, I didn't mean that. I took that one too far. That's a little bit too much emphasis on that one. But the thing is, women's iron requirements are higher. They're higher than men's. So if somebody should be eating red meat, for the most part, it's women. Like a lot of it. Like guess who's gonna need a ribeye when that time of the month comes?
Yeah.
The ladies.
Yeah. And yes, some plant foods do have a lot of iron in them, but they're not heme iron.
Yep.
It's non-heme iron, which there's a difference in how it affects you. And I'm not saying that you can't have a blend of it, but I wouldn't rely solely on plant for iron if you have issues with it.
Yeah. And B vitamins, the same thing. It's meat sourced. And it's funny because that's a common deficiency in a lot of women. It's B vitamins and iron. I mean, and doing onboardings and asking the questions like, oh yeah, my B vitamins and my iron are low. Okay, let's look at the eating. Boom, protein's way low. And then if we're taking in iron, it's like we're looking at spinach and things like that, which are not. I mean, you'd have to eat a whole field of spinach to get your iron, like literally the whole field to get the iron that you're gonna need. It's interesting that that's the way it's going.
Isn't it interesting how things like cows eat plants that have iron in them and then digest it in a way that then when we eat the cow, we get more bioavailable iron? Isn't that interesting how that happens?
Yes. Ain't it interesting that cows have multiple stomachs and they can eat stuff and digest it multiple times, which kind of goes through like this purification process that turns it into nutrients. And then you eat it and you get those nutrients. But we're telling people that cows are bad for the environment and that we need to get rid of cows.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah. The other thing, and I don't know if we're ready to go to stress management, but stress management, I just want to say, because you brought up B vitamins and vitamin D, some women may be out there saying, but I do eat red meat. I do this, but I take a vitamin D supplement, but I'm still low on the end.
Ooh, I've just had that conversation.
Right. So then I would say, let's look at our gut health. Okay. And when you look at your gut health, you need to address stress. Okay. Because the majority of our serotonin receptors, so if you think of, what are antidepressant, anti-anxiety medicines, they're selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors to help keep serotonin in your brain. But the majority, I don't know if that's the majority or not off the top of my head, but there's a lot of serotonin receptors in our gut. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's why when you take these medications, you get nauseous because it's hitting on these receptors. Okay. And so if your gut health is poor because you're highly stressed, you're not eating enough, you're not sleeping well, you're not able to absorb these things to then help you feel better. Okay. And so it is frustratingly all connected. Okay. And that's why we like to talk about the basics of eating well, moving your body regularly, sleeping well, managing stress, because that can help calm down everything.
Yes. And on the vitamin D thing too, and this happens to a lot of people, like vitamin D is fat soluble.
Yeah.
And usually it's better if you take it with food.
Right.
Because people will take it, and this goes back to the disordered eating. I took my vitamin D this morning, but I didn't have breakfast.
And coffee for breakfast.
I had coffee for breakfast, or I had some other random thing for breakfast. So that means that you took a pill that your body's going to have a hard time absorbing and maximizing because you didn't pair that right. Of note, vitamin D3 pairs with K2, and that ensures better absorption of the vitamin D that you just took. What's a common source of vitamin K besides taking the vitamin K, Janie?
Butter.
There you go. So if you eat eggs and you put a little butter on there, or you're eating some nice sourdough bread with 3 ingredients and another source of protein, you don't have to eat eggs. Let's say you're having, I don't know, a nice Greek yogurt with a bunch of stuff in it or whatever. You put a little butter on that 3 ingredient sourdough bread, booyah, you take your vitamin D pill. Now we're in a better place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And Another thing that I see commonly in women, I'm just going to paint a picture. And I know if you are a woman, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, that's me. Or I know somebody who that is. They're coming to see me because they're tired, fatigued, they can't lose weight, enter a reason. Okay. Take me through a typical day. I have to get my kids ready, or I'm rushed in the morning because I have to do X, Y, and Z off to work. So I'll just grab a coffee, drink a coffee on my way to work and not have breakfast. And then I'll eat at lunch. Okay. And then I'm overeating after work or at dinner. I can't control my appetite. And then I'm not sleeping well. Okay. So this is like the perfect setup. All right. Now, when we wake up in the morning, we have a cortisol awakening response, meaning our cortisol comes up a little bit to bing, wake up. Okay. If that's abnormal, which you need to get tested in a specific way, it's not just one simple blood test. If that's abnormal because you're stressed, and then you just have coffee in the morning on an empty stomach, which is just caffeine,
Oh, baby.
that's going to further increase your cortisol because it's heightening your blood pressure, your heart rate, adrenaline goes up with the coffee. And you're just like, I got to get to work. And then you're not eating anything, which the body, our little lizard brain's like, oh, no food, stressed, we're starving. Okay. And now you're tired. So your body's like, you're crashing because you're not fully nourished. So then what do? Have an afternoon coffee or an energy drink. So we're just popping things up throughout the day in regards to our blood sugar and adrenaline to try to seek energy, when really we just need to be eating more real food.
Yes.
That's a very, very layman, like very strict. There's way more intricacies to that.
Yeah.
But just to kind of keep for time's sake.
Stress management is key. It's so important for women. Women are like, it's like a NASCAR. Like there's so much to it, all these hormonal balances and all these levers to move, whereas men, it's more like a simple thing. Like, hey, put a steak in his mouth, make him lift some weights, just throw him out there and boom, you're good. But with the women, it's like there's a lot, and there's a lot that could throw you off and a lot that can make you better. And it's all these levers. And really, if you're doing things like what Janie just said, where food is an afterthought, but caffeine's a priority, and we're relying on supplements as nutritional strategies, and we're not really the stress management piece, like really finding ways to cope and manage stress, it throws you completely off. And then it's a cascade effect of issues after that, where you're like, your hair is falling out, sleep is dysregulated. And that's something, in talking about stress management, I'm also addressing the women that are already, following some sort of health initiatives, where it's like, hey, I have kids, I got a job, I'm running around. Now I'm going to go to the gym, and guess what's the preferred methodology that women have been convinced that they need to be doing if they want to, quote unquote, lose weight? Cardio, heavy cardio,
or high intensity.
High intensity
training.
It's
not really high intensity, but it's, the Orange Theory, the certain CrossFits, the
F45s, the HIIT studio boot camp craze.
Right. Which Dan and I always say, some movement's better than none.
Yep.
All right. If you enjoy that stuff, there's a community aspect to it. It's great for women because, hey, I just walk in, I'm told what to do, I leave, right? When else in our life do we get that? Okay.
Yeah.
Where somebody just tells us what to do and we don't have to produce what needs to be done. And so that's great. And if that's what you do, I will say though, if that's what you're doing, recovery needs to be a priority. Nutrition needs to be a priority to allow you to recover and then be able to do that again.
And I think I take you got to take a zoom out a little bit and look at the rest of your life. Can you accommodate that with all the other stressors that you have in your life? If the answer is yes, be like, hey, I don't have kids, or my kid's super easy, I only have one, I don't work, I'm a stay-at-home mom, like I can manage my I have this time where I recharge, whatever your situation is that allows for lowered levels of stress and everything else, then you can inject this higher stressor in there. I would tell you to be measured. If you're going to do HIIT training, it looks more like 1 to 2 times a week, and then you do other more easily regulatable stuff versus just relying on that 5 to 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. But if we're talking to the person that's like, I have very high levels of stress in my day to day, and then I'm going to go hit that freaking F45 or that HIIT workout,
5 times a week. And then next thing what's the first sign usually for women that something is not going right? Sleep becomes very, very spotty. They get thrown off like that.
Yep.
Then your hair starts falling out. Then, and then feelings of anxiety and depression start creeping in because those hormones are going all over the place. And it becomes this boom, 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 cascading effect where it's like, we need to manage stress. Maybe for you that you're a little bit more stressed, your workouts look more like a little bit of a bodybuilding type of situation at the gym where you can go and focus on getting stronger in a more calm environment. And then your cardio is like an incline walk on the treadmill and very chill. And I've seen this, I tell Janie all the time, because I worked at a major health club, where there were a lot of women training, and the fittest women in the gym, I told Jane, is like they come in, they do their little glute focused bodybuilding thing. They're RDLing, they're squatting, they're lunging, really chill, taking good breaks in between sets, focus, progressively overload. They're doing the routines week to week and be like heavier weights. I can see it. I'm paying attention. And then they get on the treadmill, put a little incline, and check Instagram afterwards for like 30 minutes. And that's it. And they're gone. Maybe an hour in the gym. Yeah. And I'm just like, boom, and look at them. And then they're obviously eating a lot of protein, they're putting on muscle, and their body composition is changing. And I saw it over months and months and months, how these girls started looking completely different, very healthy, very strong. They're lifting heavy, zone 2 easy, and the results paid dividends. You know what I mean? And to tell that to a lot of women, they're like, nah, that doesn't work.
Right.
Like, yo, if you walked into this gym and you saw these girls, you'd be like, I want to look like her.
Yeah, because we've been programmed that you need to be drenched in sweat and crawling out of the gym for it to have been a good workout.
Of note, funny story. Same gym, the gym had a cafe. This is a Lifetime, guys. So, huge gym.
I like
cafes.
how you were trying to avoid saying
No.
now you're just like, it's Lifetime.
It's Lifetime. I was freaking, so that people get an idea. It's a huge health club, fancy health club. But there's a cafe there, and there's one of the girls that worked at the cafe, young girl, high school senior, maybe college freshman, tops. But she fit this bill. Weights, functional movements, and cardio, easy cardio on the treadmill. And she looked very fit. I walked into the kitchen one time. She worked at a cafe, and I walked into the kitchen looking for my little lunchbox in the back, because yes, I take a lunchbox to work. Anyway, and she's in there shoveling chicken salad, like a huge amount of chicken salad in her face, just like, pow, putting it in there. And I started laughing. I'm like, what's going on here? And she's like, I need protein. And I was like, you know what? The kids are going to be all right.
Yeah.
I came home and told James, like, this is the complete opposite of the 90s. Maybe some of these girls on social media that are like these influencers that are lifting weights and promoting getting strong, it's starting to work.
Yeah. And one thing I want to hit on stress management quickly is a lot of times women, we already have, your day is full of things you have to do, right? You have to take care of this, take care of this, take care of this. And when it comes to you need to work on stress management, it's like you need to do this. So it's another thing you need to do, right? And that can be very frustrating, especially if it's coming from your employer, where it's like you need to create work-life balance. I've been there. I understand how frustrating that is. You just put another thing on my overwhelming list, which is what is stressing me out. Thank you. And one thing that I think women reach for a lot for stress management is alcohol, which, it's been popularized by let's wind down. I'm sure there's other things out there that are said that can be cute to say right now, but that's really the biggest one. Or they have like wine that helps them calm down from the day after the kids go to sleep. Mm-hmm. That is actively working against your health. Okay. Now I'm not saying you can never have a glass of wine, but if it's a daily thing and then you're relying on it as your stress outlet, like you cannot relax unless you have this, that's when it has just turned into a problem.
Yeah. And I gotta say, if you're stressed out, 9 out of 10, dropping the alcohol in there is probably just going to make it worse. You might feel better, like you're soothing yourself like a pacifier, but really you're working against your future prospects at that point.
And it directly disrupts your sleep, which is not going to allow you to recover and will make you feel more stressed heading into the next day.
And even like nutrient absorption and that sort of thing, because your body's going to prioritize metabolizing alcohol before the rest of your food. So you're really working against your future prospects if that is your coping strategy. So to look at it, if you're living a very stressed life, we want to minimize the other stressors. Exercise can be a stressor. Lack of nutrition is definitely a stressor.
Right.
So if we have all this stress here, jobs, kids, whatever it may be, we want to make sure that the stuff that we need to do, because you need to focus on your nutrition and we need to get some movement. If we care about our long-term health, if you don't care, then whatever, turn this off and do your thing. But I know you care.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out ways that we can exercise that are not going to throw us over the top, and making sure that we get enough nutrients so that you don't, throw yourself over the top. So this stuff here, exercise, nutrition, and your stress management mechanisms should help you be able to better tackle the other stressors that you have to deal with.
Agreed.
Does that make sense?
I always encourage people to, when you're under high amounts of stress, do not think that you need to exercise to a point where you're going hard, you're focusing on like, I need to lose weight, I need to do this. Like, no, you're under a lot of stress right now. Let's use exercise as a stress relief. Move your body in a way that makes you feel good. Maybe that's a walk with or without your family. Sometimes spending time with your family is a stress relief. Sometimes you need to step away, right? Go, I don't know, some other things that you can do. Yoga is a great thing for like a stress relief because it helps bring you down, control your breathing and things like that. So we need to toggle the exercise more as a stress outlet. Then when other stressors in your life are down, now we can toggle exercise to be like, I really want to get this squat weight. I really want to like run a mile under this mountain. Then it can be used for those things.
And remembering, listen, you think you need less than you think to actually move your health meter in the direction that you want to move it towards, a positive direction. I'm gonna give you a little recommendation. This is in the general sense. If you get 2 full body strength training sessions a week, consistently, hit me those 2 full bodies. You focus on progressively overloading those, meaning we're working on getting stronger and building more capability every time we go in the gym. And then you get your 10,000 steps in, or you get some zone 2 cardio. The other days where you just walk for 30 minutes at a, somewhat controlled pace. Usually if you can get in the zone, 180 minus your age being the top end, as hard as you're going to go, this works really, really well. And if you're super stressed and you've been grinding yourself out with crazy HIIT workouts and crazy diets, and you're like, then make sure you're getting enough protein. But if you've been grinding yourself out and you're like, it's not working, I'm not losing any weight, and you shift over to something like what I just said, results are going to come.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be surprised at how the hardest work is going to be the consistency part.
Yep.
And the results are going to come for sure.
Yeah.
Before we shift over into It's Fine and we wrap this thing up, I want to give 2 examples of 2 women that I'm just like blown away by. One, my favorite person, probably one of my favorite people in the world, lady that used to work out at the gym in New York. Oh, you. Girl, of course, you're my favorite person in the world. But, I'm talking about
I understand. I know who. Yeah.
As an example.
Yes.
I mean, this lady, at the time, she was 81 years old. So she's got to be 85 now, probably. 81, maybe weighed 105 pounds. Tiny woman. Just tiny because you're just a small person. But she was a freaking beast, y'all. Like 300 pounds on the sled. She could push that shit back and forth. I'm just like, how is she doing it? Like I had high school athletes at the time and they would complain about pushing half the weight on the sled.
It's that grown woman strength.
And I literally pulled up the video. She's 81, guys. Look at her. And she's like grinding that sled out. Just crazy strength. She could squat ass to grass. I always told James, like, listen, this woman is going to die at 100 in a car accident because there's no other way she's going to leave this earth. It's crazy how physically capable she was at that age. Changing doors she lived on a farm, changing doors in her house by herself. I worked briefly in a freaking painting crew, and changing doors was a 2-man job. She tells me she hired somebody to help her change doors in her house. And she's like, and I told her, hey, Gail, how'd that go? She's like, oh, they didn't show up. It's like, oh, that sucks. So what you do? Looks at me deadpan.
I changed the freaking doors. I'm like, yo, this lady is hard. Okay. So that to me, man or woman, that's what we want. That's the goal. When I think about what we do, that's what I want for everybody. That you could be 81 years old and still be a BAMF like that.
Yeah.
And the other person is your friend, my client.
Oh, yes.
Mother of five kids, y'all. 5. Like, think about that. In 2025, 5 kids. And I was, I do remote programming for her. And I was looking at her numbers yesterday because I was writing other stuff. I was like, is that? I'm like, yo, did you pull like a 280 freaking sumo?
Yeah,
And she's
she did.
tall. Because she puts it in kilograms because that's the place that she has. And I'm like, you realize that you're probably pulling over 300 pounds as a mother of 5.
So amazing.
And, when you see her kids and stuff, they're all like flexing their muscles, little kids flexing their muscles.
They go down and work
out with mommy. They want us to do what mommy's doing. And this is, they like to eat whole foods. And this is where I tell you about the influence that women have in the family because they see more of mommy by whatever design it may be. And it just like, man, mommy's out there 5:30 in the morning, 4 days a week without fail, lifting these freaking weights and getting really freaking strong. And the kids they're motivated by that. They're like adopting that. You know what I mean?
And she can definitely, because her and I came up doing CrossFit together. I mean, our friendship came up. So that's how we became friends, doing CrossFit together. So her and I both had to go through the education of, less is more. We don't have to kill ourselves to be able to get a good workout. And she's definitely, she had to go through that too, because I know she was asking you for like some extra stuff and she stayed consistent with it. She's trusted the process. And I would say her results for capability, strength, and even,
she looks different.
She a MILF.
Yeah, no, she looks way different. She looks very different. She looks very different. And I mean, and it's, she's long and like would normally be like the lanky.
She's like 6'1".
Exactly.
She's so tall.
But all legs, all arms, and you think she's got like that supermodel type of build where putting muscle on her would be a little bit more challenging. Nah, that girl, she's off to the races with that.
Yeah.
She's eating that protein, y'all. She's managing that stress. We're not burning out. When we lift, you do your thing, and then you figure out how to make sure that recovery is a priority as much as she can when she's chasing down 5 kids and going to work.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. 5 kids and a career. Stop it right now. Well, closing out, we want to go over to the it's fine. What are we?
It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We don't need to worry about it.
So as we mentioned with the stress and how not nourishing our bodies effectively as women can lead to things like hair loss, sleep issues, women are more often than men going to go to the doctor's office to seek help for this, right? And more often than not, women are going to be pacified with medications, okay? Oh, your hair is falling out? Here's some spironolactone. It's a diuretic that can help with hair loss. It is a huge pet peeve of mine when doctors or other providers prescribe this for women who have hair loss and they don't ask them about their dietary intake or their stress. Anyway, okay. Or they're given anti-anxiety medications, anti-depression medications, or sleep medications to help with their sleep. But we're not getting at the root cause of the issue, which is nourishing our body, moving well in a way that doesn't increase stress, and managing stress. The other thing is that when we don't manage our stress, we don't nourish our bodies enough, signs of that, like I've said, hair loss. It's also our thyroid can start to mess up a little bit, or our hormones kind of get off. Your periods get a little wonky, right? Your hormones are, thyroid hormones determine our periods. So that is the smoke signal. Our hormones are the smoke signal in our body. Things are going off. Okay, things are off, excuse me. And instead of addressing the root cause, a lot of times women will just be placed on an oral contraceptive, which then takes over. Your hormones are suppressed, so you have a withdrawal bleed every month. That's not the same as a period, and that's not okay. All right. So again, we're neglecting the root cause. Women are constantly continuing to undereat, overexercise, under recover, but we're giving them these medications to pacify the symptoms, but then they can cause other stuff. Like I know personally when I was on contraceptives, I would get really bad acne from it. My hair fell out with one of them. And they're just known to cause issues with our mood. They're known to be class 1 carcinogens. They're known to, you saw a study, they affect.
So this is and this is something, again, I always like to say, even the studies that we put a little asterisk with them and we review methodology and we review funding. Okay. You got to look at where that money's coming from when you look at these conclusions. But this is super interesting. Study where women, they basically studied their reaction to the pheromones of men. So they put these shirts and kind of trapped them and sealed them with that men had worn, and then had women rate their, how they felt attracted to these smells that these men had. Listen, guys, we ain't nothing but mammals. And that's why we do it like they do on the Discovery Channel,
goodness.
okay? I got bad jokes today. So biochemistry is a very big part of physical attraction. You can't explain it it's biochemistry. There are little chemical signals going off in your body. So smell is definitely a part of that. And women tend to be way more responsive to that than men are. So the natural smell of a man will elicit certain biochemical reactions in women. Now, in this study, when they had women rate their level of attractive to these smells, the women that were on birth control were basically tended to miss the mark more than the women who weren't. So they were basically attracted to other smells that when they saw the man, it wasn't a match.
Right.
Now, grab your hat real quick. Boom, tinfoil moment here. What's happening out there in society that has been on the rise for years and people really can't explain it? Infertility, but also divorce rates going through the roof. It's like nobody stays together anymore.
Right.
Why? You know what I mean? Obviously, there's multiple factors, but I'm going to go ahead and theorize as a very good tinfoil hatter here that, this thing, the reliance on oral contraception could be a good, nice cup in a bucket of water that is causing all these relationship issues out there in society. I mean, there's more to that picture that we can talk about, but maybe it plays a part. Maybe, just maybe.
Basically, what Dan is saying is that women are finding themselves attracted to men while on birth control, that when they come off of birth control, they're like, I'm not attracted to this man.
Yep.
Okay. And I would say that the men that they're attracted to while on birth control tend to be the less of the, dominating. I don't know if I want to say that word.
Masculine, like the level of masculine. Yeah.
Right. And women, if you're out there being like, I don't need my man to be masculine. If you're reading any of the dark fantasy books, ACOTAR, Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, those stuff like that. And the character that I know gets you all riled up is the dominating man who takes charge and is big and muscular. Don't tell me you don't like muscular and masculine men. Don't tell me that.
I told Janie this when she started reading these books, because she's like, oh my God, this dude's a badass.
I just need a break from real life, okay?
Yeah, and I told her, like, isn't it funny how out there in society, all these people are talking about toxic masculinity, this, and men don't need to be strong, and men don't need to do this, blah, 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 all this stuff about
you want a
toxic
man with bat wings
masculinity.
to dominate you?
Yet you read these freaking books, which ladies, I know a lot of you are, and you're hearing this warrior, burly, muscular dude that's large and in charge, and you're like, oh my God, he's so badass. What are we talking about, y'all? Like, then why don't you want men in real life to be like that?
But to wrap it up, I do think that one of the biggest things is that there's been a lot of miseducation or lack of education for women on our hormones, our menstrual health, our, how dare I say cervical fluid, okay? And those are key things that we can be attuned to help optimize our health. And so instead of going to and relying on medications to pacify these symptoms that you're having, if they're extreme, yes, get this help that you need. But let's educate ourselves on how to optimize our normal bodily functions, including our menstrual cycle. And I don't just want to sit here and poo-poo on it all, how it is now. I do want to give you actionable help. So I have a dear friend and colleague, Danielle Kepix, who has done the work on gathering this information and putting it together in a digestible way for people. She has guides, master classes, and I will include the link in the show notes so you guys can go there. She has a menstrual cycle 101, hormone 101, like all these things that I think would be I've learned a lot from her, but hugely beneficial to women taking charge of their health, being more comfortable in their bodies, more comfortable with our periods, because they're such a taboo thing when really we can, conquer them, for lack of better words. And so definitely check her out and her guides out and take advantage of those.
And then we'll close with this. Danielle's fascinating. And listen, if you're easily offended, she might not be the one for you, but I'm going to challenge you to listen, because she is in your face about her message, and she's very passionate about this thing, and she wants to beat this thing down and help as many people as she can. I'll close it out here. I grew up born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, and I remember the time when, my female classmates, they got acne, and a lot of them were taken to the doctor to get put on birth control to fight their acne. But hey, did anybody talk about all that Burger King you were eating for lunch every day or addressing any of that stuff? Probably not. So now we fast forward to this time when, these girls that grew up like that, where birth control was this easily, boom, just go on this resort. And we have infertility issues amongst a larger part of the female population, and, declining birth rates and all this stuff. I'm just a guy on the internet asking questions. Think about it, okay?
Yeah.
With that in mind, take charge of your health.
Yep.
Take responsibility for your health. It's your health after all, okay? Don't let these people fool you. You take charge of it. With that,
Yeah.
we out.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the PharmaPhobic podcast. If you found this conversation interesting, which I know you did, make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to check us out on Instagram @Achieve the Lifestyle. And if you're interested in pursuing a stronger, healthier, more capable version of yourself, check out our website at achievethelifestyle.com.
The PharmaPhobic podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not constitute medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any medical or wellness decisions. While we discuss pharmaceutical, holistic, and alternative health topics, our content is not a substitute for professional medical guidance.